Hello everybody, welcome back to my RC plane channel. I'm James, working on this Balsa USA Stingray 120. So in my last video, I constructed this upper part of the rear fuselage, this turtle deck area, and that included putting on these different formers and then laying down these stringers to form this shape. And I had a lot of comments, and they were good comments, about the alignment of these two formers and how they don't align directly on top of the cross braces in here. So let me get my flashlight and show you. Maybe this will help you can see it better. But you can see how that former, this former right here, for example, is not sitting right on top of this little cross brace right here. This little guy right there. If I flip it over, maybe you can see that better. I'm not sure. Yeah, so maybe you can kind of see that down in there. There we go, like that. So per the instructions, that former is supposed to be sitting directly on top of that cross brace right there. So let me kind of go over the instructions again and go show the plans, and we'll just take some measurements and kind of look at kind of how this is constructed. And you know, I do want to start by saying I really do appreciate the comments, and I appreciate the people who are looking closely at what I'm doing here. And I don't take any of this as negative. I don't take any of this as anything bad, and I actually do appreciate it. So, and I have no problem admitting if I make a mistake when I'm building a kit. I mean, that's part of the process. And hopefully, you know, if you're building this particular plane and you're watching my build series, or if you've built it or you're thinking about it, you know, hopefully this kind of helps you also when you're building this particular kit. So I appreciate the comments, and then after I kind of show you all this, and if you have any other comments you want to, you know, respond back to this video, that would be great, especially for those of you who are actually building this kit. I'd like to hear from you. All right, so I'm going to show you the instructions from the instruction booklet real quick, and we'll look at the plan together, and then I'll show you kind of how I constructed this and make our comparisons. Well, I thought I'd go ahead and start with the plan, so that kind of makes the most sense, I think. So again, here's the turtle deck that we're talking about, and then here are the formers that are offset. Okay, so this one, F8, ended up being somewhere like back in here, and F9 even further back, something like right back in here. And then the little cross braces are here, 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 and there. And then I also have this little cross piece right here, which is this guy. And then of course I have this laminated former up here, which are these two pieces right inside here. And then of course we have the stringers that go down, you know, taper down to the tail section. All right, so let me look at the instructions real quick to kind of show you what it said, and then I'll go from there. Okay, so the first step was to put this little cross piece on the tail section using the horizontal stabilizer to locate its correct location. That's this guy right here. And then the next step, it said, is to tack formers F8 and F9 in place using thin CA. And it says, you know, it says do not use too much glue, as you may need to move these slightly in the following steps. So what they had you do in the instructions would be to tack these two guys on here, F8 and F9, and then based on sort of how things lined up, you may have to remove them, right? So it says, now that the center stringer, oh, and we also attached this front piece on right here. And again, I cut a little angle. I made a little angle brace like this guy, and I used to help get the correct angle, if you remember seeing that. So that was attached also. All right, and then it says here, use the 1/4 by 1/4 inch 24-inch balsa sticks for your stringers. Lay the center stringer in place and make sure that it fits properly on both F8 and F9 with the stringer staying straight. And here we go. If F8 or F9 is either too high or too low, move them as needed. Once the fit is right, glue the stringer in place. Okay, so that's what I did. Now I did this a little bit differently. What I did was I thought, well, if there's a chance that I have to move these back and forth, why not just put you know, after this is on up here, after this front formers are on, and after this rear brace is on, just put this guy on the top and then just move these to where they need to be. And that's what I did. So I did that, and then I ended up having to push them both back in order for them to meet the this top stringer here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try my best to line the fuselage up on the plans, and then take the camera and see if I can get close and kind of use it to help me show kind of how things are lined up relative to the plans in comparison to the fuselage construction. Okay, so I have the fuselage lined up on the plans the best I can, and let's go ahead and take a look at some of the alignment. I'll start up here in the front, and hopefully I'll use my flashlight so we can kind of see better. But here's this front former here, and I have it aligned with this line right here on the plan. And if we look sort of down through the fuselage to the plan itself, you'll see on the other side, the top edge of the side sheeting here on the bottom, you'll see that I have that lined up, there it is, with the line on the plan. So as I trace it backward toward the tail, you see, of course, there's our former, which is offset. And I keep going here, and again, I come back to this one, of course, it's offset, as you can see there. But let's go ahead and look at this angle up here. So I have my 1, 2, 3 block, and don't want to knock this around, but let me put it up against here. Like that. And if I pull this off of here, you'll see that it's pretty close. Okay. Well, a little off by a little degree or so, but you know, I think that's really close enough there. So now I got to put this back. So let me go ahead and put this back where it was, and we'll look at it again. All right, so I got it lined up again. So if I go down to this side to the tail here, and I look down on this, I'm just going to push it down. I'm right on the tip here, and I push it down. Oops, push it down, and you can see that this little block here is lined up pretty good with this on the plan. Okay, so let's look at the formers themselves and see what they're doing. One of my concerns is, well, maybe I over sanded these things. Maybe I sanded them too much and they got smaller. So if I look at the formers here, they should be the same, about the same height, right? And I did sand them because you have to sand them a little bit, or you should sand them a little bit, because if you look at the top here, there's an angle between the former and the stringer. So it's a slight angle, and all I did, and if you review the last video, I just kind of knocked off the edge on this side and left this side alone. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use this popsicle stick thing, and I'm going to try to just mark how high this first former is. So I'm going to carefully put it down here, all the way down to that center top stringer, which is like right there. So that's pushed all the way down there. And make sure it's straight up and down. And I'm just going to mark it on this side with my pen. Okay. And this will be this is F8. Okay. Let me write F8 on here. Boy, that was kind of crappy. It's hard because I'm doing this close up and trying to look over the camera. So this is F8. Okay. Yikes. I think we get the picture though. Okay. And then we do now this F9, which is the one back here. I'll push this all the way down to the top stringer. Push it down. Make sure it's straight, and I'll mark it. And that'll be F9. That's better. And then we'll go over to our plan. F8 and F9 are right there. So you can see that F8 is pretty much right on. So that wasn't over sanded. And then here's F9. Okay. All right, so what does that mean? It means that F8 and F9 have not been over sanded. They're the correct height, and that means that by pushing them backward, what would that do? If everything's lined up correctly, and I push these backward, that would basically push up against the. Let's do it this way. It would push up against this stringer, and it would cause it to kind of bow, right? It would kind of make it bow out, and therefore it would have a little bit of, you would expect to see, if you put a straight edge, or I'm going to use this level here, you'd expect to see maybe if it was bowed out, it would sort of rock back and forth on top of here. If they were too small, it would actually bow inward, or downward I should say. So if these were too small, the top of it would bow downward, and when I put this on, you would see a gap in here. If they were too long or too high, or if I pushed them back too far, that would cause it to bow upward, and you'd see a little bit of rising or rocking, because it would be sort of on top of that like a seesaw, right? So let's go ahead and check that. Okay, so if I put my level down on the end here, level on top of that, on the center top stringer, I hold it, and then I do the same in the front up here. See if I can get it lined up here without getting too wacky. Something like that. I can tell, and you may not be able to. Let me see again here. I can tell that I have on the front end up here, there's a little bit, oh, you can kind of see this? Hopefully. Hopefully you can see this. There's a little slight rocking to it. Okay. Kind of hard to show. And I got a little teeny gap. I'm thinking maybe somewhere, if I push this down all the way on here, on the back, I've got somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe a 32nd of an inch or so out here, which is really small. But overall, what it's showing is there is a little teeny bit of rocking in here. If I kind of show you here like this. Let's get this other guy here. I mean, you can see that it's pretty darn close. Go here, maybe up here. I mean, boy, it still is really, it's not like it's out of whack. So I guess what I'll say in conclusion here is that they may be pushed up really slightly, but I don't think enough to really cause, I mean, for it to be moved that far back, I would have expected to have like a significant bow in it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but in any case, when I was lining this up, I felt it was pretty straight, or straight as I could get it, and I got these to fit the way they are shown here. All right, so here's my conclusion on this. Everything seemed to be lined up really well for everything else except for these two formers. I didn't pick up anything that really stood out as being off too much, or much at all. But obviously these two formers are set back further than they should be according to the plans. Obviously to the instructions they say you have to make adjustments to them. And as I showed, there is a slight bow to this top stringer, which indicates that if I did push these back a little too far, it would have pushed them up a little bit, and that would cause that bow. But it was just a tiny, tiny bit. And you certainly can't see it when you're looking, at least I can't see it when I'm just looking straight at it. And it is still hard to pick up even when I use a level or use a straight edge like that. All right, so the question is this going to be a problem? I don't think it is. I can add, and people have suggested maybe I should just go ahead and add another 1/4 inch stock cross brace just right below them, and I'll probably do that just to complete it like that. But this is still really, really strong. But I will do that, I think, just because it will look a little better, at least until we cover up, you won't even see it. Okay, well that's going to be about it for this. I hope that was helpful. I hope I addressed some of the comments that I received on this. And again, once again, if you're building this kit or you're thinking about building this particular plane, hopefully this was helpful to you. And again, I don't claim to be an expert, and I appreciate all the comments. There's plenty of people out there that I learned from, and there's plenty of people out there that know way more about this kind of stuff than I do. So I always appreciate it. I don't take any kind of comment like that as negative. I do think it's good for us all to kind of learn from each other. So that's that. And what I'm going to do now is the next step in this build, that we're going to be moving on to the landing gear plate. I'm going to be mounting the landing gear and do a few other things. So next video on this, I'm going to be doing a couple miscellaneous steps. So hopefully you'll join me for that. And once again, I always appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.